Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're listening to another episode of Select Star from Data Lake. And in this episode, what I want to do is just kind of speak through what is the value proposition of Dremio. Um, just because Dremio does a lot of things, and I would just kind of like want to walk through sort of the values of this really cool platform. That sometimes when you kind of see everything it does, can sometimes kind of not be obvious. When you break it down though, and you say, hey, we got this core piece and plus this and plus that, you start to really see that how powerful Dremio is. Now, at the core, we'll start sort of with its sort of probably most fundamental and most obvious benefit. And this is sort of like the data virtualization features of Dremio. Now, what does that mean, data virtualization? So data virtualization just means that you're able to take multiple data from multiple places and treat it as if it were sort of one integrated data system. So in this case, basically it feels like you're interacting with one big giant database, but the data might be in actually multiple databases, data lakes, data warehouses, etc. And that's a cool thing. Okay, this already opens up several different possible sort of use cases. So being able to one avoid a lot of data movement, because let's say for on a simple example, let's say you have like 3 SQL Server servers. Okay, your data split up against these 3 instances of SQL Server. Well, they can't really talk to each other a lot of the time. So in that case, you can connect to Dremio and actually federate queries between all of this instead of having to kind of move data between these servers, or be able to. Well, I'll get into reflections in a little bit. We'll save that for a little bit later on. Other use cases is, for one example, being able to run SQL on data sources that you normally cannot run SQL on. So this could be as simple as running SQL on CSV, JSON files that are in your data lake, to running SQL on NoSQL databases like Elasticsearch data or MongoDB data. Allowing you to use sort of traditional, sort of more intuitive, sort of analytic type skill sets. So for example, your analyst might be already have plenty of years using experience with SQL, and basically they can much quicker answer a question using SQL versus having to learn some sort of custom query language for the particular platform where your data is sitting in. So that's like sort of what data virtualization sort of brings to the table. Okay, so Dremio can do that. Again, connect different databases, data warehouses, and data lakes, and allow you to run queries between them, join the data, whatnot, and that's referred to as query federation. So one thing is to connect all the data sets in there, and then there's data query federation. So the idea is that your query can actually use multiples of these data sets within one query. Okay, so even though they're in different places, you can join them together and whatnot. Now, then we add in the semantic layer. So Dremio also provides a semantic layer. So not only can you run queries against your data, you have this sort of layer where you can create definitions of your data. And what does this mean? It just really means SQL views. But these views or virtual data sets allow you to create the kind of data sets that your business users recognize. Okay, they may not, when they take a look at your sales table in a star schema, your average business user is not going to be like, okay, how do I answer my questions? But if the question they're asking is sort of like, hey, what is my average sales for the month of June? I can create a view that sort of consolidates that data and then proper reporting and BI dashboards on top of that. So you can create these views on your data that are built from multiple sources right there and define them there, and also co-locate it with like tagging and documentation to make the data more discoverable, provide context, things like that. And that's the semantic layer. So again, the idea is that we can define sort of the things that our business users need to consume in a way that our business users can consume them better. Okay, so I'm able to connect all this data in one place. I'm able to make it very consumable. Okay, and the cool thing about that is that the Dremio query engine has many ways that it can deliver the data to these users. So you can use the Dremio user interface, but you also have very typical standard interfaces that are available to you, like JDBC or DBC, which most data systems have. You have a REST API that allows you to basically automate anything that goes on in the Dremio platform via the REST API, and also via SQL language. So again, you can send that SQL language either via JDBC or our final option, which is Apache Arrow Flight, which will be the fastest of the 3 options, which is a standard that comes out of the Apache Arrow project. So basically, again, so sort of value propositions, again, that data virtualization, to be able to connect data across many sources into one place and one interface. Data query federation, the ability to run queries across multiples of those sources. A semantic layer, an ability to take all those data sources and not just query it, but be able to define consumable metrics, or basically do sort of business and last mile modeling, meaning basically create something that the end user, who's not necessarily who's not going to be your SQL analyst, not your tech user, someone that basically is just there driving business decisions, something that they can understand a bit better. But then there's the performance. Dremio is really, really fast, and a lot of that has to do with Apache Arrow. Apache Arrow, which is a project that in part was originated from Dremio, and creating sort of a really fast, in-memory way of representing data for really fast processing. And Dremio really leverages a lot of these open source standards that allow for faster processing. So in this case, how we represent data when you're actually crunching the numbers, that's Arrow, allows you to do that faster. Now, oftentimes if you're working with a data lake, you're going to need to load that data from files. So that's where like Apache Parquet comes in with a really fast file format that's really easy, quick to read. So essentially, if we're talking about Parquet data files sitting on a data lake, a particular data source, Dremio can read those Parquet files really fast, load them into Apache Arrow, crunch the numbers, and return you a result really, really fast. And then even better, if those Apache Parquet files on your data lake are organized into what's called a table using a format called Apache Iceberg, well, then you get even additional optimization, because basically using the Apache Iceberg metadata, it can identify, hey, I don't need to read all 100 files. I only need to read 20 of these files, and then I can read those files really fast into Apache Arrow, crunch the numbers, and return you a result. So Dremio is really fast. And Dremio is especially fast when you choose to leverage these open source standards. So you're always going to be leveraging Apache Arrow, but if you choose to leverage things like Apache Parquet files and Apache Iceberg tables, you're going to get additional performance out of Dremio. Okay, so you get that performance. So again, we got data virtualization, connecting all my data sources. You got query federation, querying data across those different sources. I got my semantic layer, turning all that data into sort of business, basically into versions of that data that are usable by my business users. I have the ability to the performance. Then I also have governance. Dremio provides the ability to govern that data. So you can have users and basically take all these data sets that you've created from all your data sources and be able to choose which users can access the data sources, which sources can access the different objects and views you've created on your semantic layer. You can help them control what rows they can see, what columns they can see. So you have a lot of flexibility in sort of how you deliver that data to the end user. Okay, and still going a step further. So as you're starting to see, like, there's a lot of things that this Dremio platform offers. Okay, so again, when you take just look at one thing, it's not, when you start really seeing sort of how all this piles up, you start really seeing what makes this so unique. And then you have the ability for Data Lakehouse. Okay, so the Dremio platform also enables Data Lakehouse. How does it do this? Data Lakehouse just means using your data lake, your data storage, as essentially your data warehouse. So that means you need to have a platform that has the ability to read and write tables on your data lake. In this case, particularly in the Apache Iceberg format. Dremio is built with Apache Iceberg in mind. It uses Apache Iceberg behind the scenes to enable a lot of its performance benefits, which we'll get into a little bit more later on. But Dremio also can read and write to Apache Iceberg. This means that if you're oftentimes using your data lake as sort of the center where you do your data, basically Dremio provides you an interface that makes it work like a data warehouse, where you can potentially curate and organize all your data sets. Cool. So that's a data lakehouse story. And again, not every time, not every Dremio user has to have a data lakehouse. Okay, and not every Dremio user has to take advantage of data virtualization, but you get all these benefits from making working with your data easier, faster, and flexible, which can, oftentimes flexibility can also be thought of as openness, because you're able to do different things. You're not locked into anything. And There's a couple more, okay? Because again, the Dremio offers a lot. But the two last things I want to mention are going to be with acceleration. So not only do you already have fast performance with Dremio, but when you need sort of that extra little push, you have a feature called reflections. And the cool thing is the reflections allow you to accelerate the performance of that data, regardless of where that data is from, regardless of what it is, and it takes a lot of the work out of that acceleration, which typically would be done in other systems using materialized views. Dremio provides these reflections that are generally done through creating Apache Iceberg-based materializations behind the scenes. So essentially it gives you the best of both worlds and the best of, because Apache Iceberg, an Apache Iceberg table essentially is one part data stored and one part metadata, which acts as an index. So by creating a materialization in Apache Iceberg, you get the speed performance benefits of that metadata providing an index, and you get the speed performance of having a materialization of that sort of subset of a larger data set. Okay, so, and there's a lot more to reflections than just that, but I would point you to some of my blog articles over there at dremio.com/blog to learn more about that. And the last piece I would put is the flexibility in deployment. You can deploy Dremio in the cloud, on-prem. You can connect to, whether you deploy it, when you deploy it, you can connect to on-prem and cloud sources within the same instance of Dremio. So you can join cloud and on-prem sources from one place, giving you even further reach when you think about sort of like those data virtualization and data federation benefits. So there's a lot of ways that Dremio can make your life easier, making it easier for you to govern all your data from one place, making it easier to access all your data from one place, being able to do it fast, and being able to make it faster when you need to. So hopefully this helps explain a little bit more sort of like what the Dremio platform offers. Honestly, one of the best ways to get started is to just get hands-on with it. I have a blog that allows you to do this right from your laptop. I'll put a link to it in the podcast episode description. But otherwise, have a great day and enjoy. My name is Alex Merced, and you're listening to Select Star from Data Lake.